So, good morning, first of all. Last night I had some questions pop up on the channel, and I just kind of want to talk to you guys. One of them is one of the subscribers was talking about some oil leaks. Now, if you are a person with a motor that's been leaking for a while and you've got oil all over the place and you're trying to figure out where that oil is coming from, the first thing that you need to do is go to the parts store and get a container of UV oil dye. They got it at pretty much all the parts stores, and dump an entire ounce into your oil. Sometimes if you have a bigger vehicle, that takes like 8 to 10 quarts, like the new Mustangs and F-150s, they have 7.7 quart to 8 quart systems. I would suggest dumping an ounce and a half to maybe 2 ounces in there. It's not going to hurt anything. In big diesel systems, you might need several ounces. In the diesel trucks, dump that in there. Go to a wash somewhere and degrease that engine. Wash it off. Now remember, when you wash an engine, there are a number of things depending on the manufacturer and the little torques and things that may affect that thing from starting and running right. Now you might want to cover up your coil packs if you have like the triple bank system that's all set together on the 3800s, or if you've got a distributor or something that hasn't been sealed up, you might want to cover that up and be conscious of it. If you're worried about, you got an alternator or something on the brink of going out and you don't want to get water and stuff in it, you might want to cover that up somehow. I don't worry about any of that stuff on these newer vehicles. I take it down to the wash bay, I leave the engine running, I spray it down, and I try to be careful where I put the spray, and then I wash the crap out of the engine. But I make sure I focus heavily on the areas where all the oil's at. So then I can run the vehicle, and I can use just a little pen UV light. You can get them at the parts stores, you can get them at Farm and Fleet, Rule King, and then run the vehicle. And when you start to see oil again, take that UV light. Sometimes you'll get a pair of yellow glasses to go along with it. You don't really need the yellow glasses, but sometimes you'll get a pair of yellow glasses to help see that UV light better. And actually look and see where that oil's coming from. You'll see it glowing. Sometimes you'll see it from inconspicuous spots that you typically wouldn't be able to see just by looking at the engine, but that dye will show you exactly where it's coming from. Sometimes it's going to take a long time for you to figure that out. You might be seeing it coming from in between the motor and the transmission, and it doesn't come from anywhere else, but it's coming down right in a straight single spot. Well, you might have actually you're going to have something like a rear main seal leak, unless there's some kind of other plug back there that oil would stop, which I doubt. But you probably have a rear main seal leak. If it's coming from the front of the engine behind the harmonic balancer and that's the only spot, then you've obviously got a crankshaft seal leak. Your front seal of your engine's leaking. You have to pull a harmonic balancer, and sometimes it's pushed into the front of an oil pump or something like that. You might have to worry about all that. This is something that doing your own work, you get into these kinds of things. If it's coming from the top of the engine, on the sides, around the valve covers, and you got old valve covers, obviously your valve cover gaskets. If it's coming from the center of the engine, you might have, if you got a top mounted turbo like on the Power Strokes and stuff like that, you might have a turbo leak. There might be some kind of turbo leak where that dye and stuff's getting down to the center of the engine, and you think that it's coming from somewhere else, but then when you put that dye in there, you see that it's actually coming from one of the turbo fittings in the valley. If you've got a turbo vehicle where they sit out on the side and it's dripping down the lines and stuff, you'll be able to identify it there. So there's the UV dye is a lifesaver. It's a godsend. It will help technicians and people in general that work on their own car diagnose and figure out where these leaks are coming from by itself, just because that fluorescent light and that dye, the materials that they put in there, really work well together. I've used it on a lot of jobs to diagnose where oil leaks are coming from. It's a perfect way for you to do it. So go to your parts store and ask them for a couple ounces. Maybe they come in like little 1 ounce containers. Sometimes they're just single use. Ask them for some oil dye. Tell them that you're wanting to figure out where you have an engine oil leak at, or maybe it's a trans oil leak. They have stuff for your trans. They have stuff for your oil. They have stuff for your power steering fluid. There's dye that you can put in everything that's universal. So it's kind of like an individual choice when it comes down to that. make sure that it is a dye that's compatible and specifically says can be put in engine oil or whatever oil you're dumping it in. It's very, very, very important. And it helps you diagnose what's going on with the vehicle. So, you know, I hope this at least helps a little bit. Obviously, I'm not on a vehicle right now showing people how to dump it in and stuff. I think you guys are smart enough to where you can figure that out. You don't need me to show you that. And then obviously you just run the vehicle normal. You can either let it sit there and idle, which I don't suggest. I don't like just letting a vehicle idle. Drive it to work, drive it to the store, do those things that you normally. And if you don't see a leak right away, you might have to drive it several days before you actually see a leak or until it shows up. That's just the nature of the beast. And it's completely fine to drive with that dye in the oil system. It's not going to hurt anything. Well, this is just a quick talk this morning. I'm headed to work, and I wanted to address that for some other people that might be interested in finding out where their oil leaks are coming from as well, but they're just having a hard time doing it. Put dye in the system, clean the engine off, UV light, preferably looking at it in a dark area or at night where there's not a lot of light out, and you'll be able to pinpoint exactly where that leak is coming from. Thanks, guys. Be blessed. Love you all.